Welcome back to another episode of the Ancient Esoterica Podcast, where we merge the wisdom of our ancestors with the present-day esoteric knowledge that is becoming available to us at this time of global expansion, upheaval, and awakening. My name is Sarah, and I've got a great show planned for you guys today. So at the point that I'm filming this, it is the beginning of March, and I felt called to record an episode about the potent astrology and energetic shifts that we're all going to be moving through to varying degrees throughout this month of March. A lot of accounts, Instagram accounts, influencers, professional astrologers, content creators, and just overall new thought leaders have been putting a lot of emphasis and significance on the astrology of the month of March of 2025. Because if you're watching this, years from now, maybe it may benefit you to look at what you are going through throughout March and February and April, the months before and after, because I find that these episodes are very timeless. Even if you are watching this way past the astrology, way past the month of March, I really do feel like there will still be something for you here. So if you're watching this past March, stay tuned. Because if you are drawn to this video, there is something within it, some little nugget of value in this episode. So stay tuned because we're going to be talking about a lot of really, really cool stuff. So I wanted to start this episode by really going into a lot about what the astrology is, like what these transits are, what to expect, and where these transits affect me personally in regards to my personal birth chart. Because a lot of this astrology introspection and contemplation was inspired by an Instagram post that I saw by the beloved Lily Ashwell. Definitely follow her if you don't know who she is. She is an amazing, amazing being who really, really takes her work seriously, but does so in a way that just packs so much value and so much beauty and just she's awesome. Go check out her Instagram and her website if you're interested in working with her or learning more about what she does on the earth plane. But she put out an amazing post the other day about the astrology for the month of March. And I'll just quickly read what the major transits are that are going to be affecting us. So starting off the month on March 1st, Venus entered retrograde at 10 degrees Aries. And this 9-10 degrees in Aries mark is very, very significant throughout these astrological transits. And I found it very interesting because a lot of my personal planets that are really being spotlighted and the themes that have been most present for me, this is so synchronistic how specific these themes that I've been noticing coming up as I've been approaching March and as I stepped into the new year. All these themes that have been present in my personal life touch on the planets within my chart that are closest to this 9 and 10 degrees in Aries mark. And so, we'll keep going the astrology and then I'll go back to my personal chart. Little all over the place, but it's part of life, part of being human, part of being real. Anyway, on March 13th, we have a total lunar eclipse at 23 degrees of the Virgo astrology sign. And that means we are entering eclipse season. And I've talked a lot about eclipse season on this podcast. I have an episode, I'm pretty sure, in my first season about eclipses, what they mean, what's going on, why the significance of eclipse season, yada, yada. So check that out if you feel called. But we have a total lunar eclipse on the 13th. And as I said, this marks the beginning of eclipse season. And I always see eclipse season as a very potent period of the year. We have 2 eclipse seasons a year, one in the fall and one in the spring. And they always really represent like the closing of a book and the opening of a new one. I heard this analogy used by an astrologer, and I will literally use it till the day I die. I think I'm pretty sure I got it from Leah Whitehorse Astrology. Definitely check her out too. She posts every day, and her messages are always like, it blows my mind how accurate they are sometimes. But this analogy is eclipse season is much like a play. And when you get to eclipse season, it's like the curtain comes down on act one. And then we enter this intermission period where all the sets are being moved around, everything's being changed around behind the scenes. And then when the curtain comes up at act two, which would represent the solar eclipse, because eclipse season is marked by two eclipses, a lunar and a solar. It starts with the lunar eclipse, and that is, that end of act one, beginning of this intermission period. And then we move through a 2-week period where there is a lot of change, a lot of upheavals, a lot of upgrades come in, and just it can sometimes feel like the rug gets ripped out from under us. Big tower card vibes if you're familiar with tarot and if you work with those archetypes. But yeah, so it begins with that total lunar eclipse at 23 degrees of Virgo on the 13th of March. And then this eclipse season ends on the 29th of March with a solar eclipse at 9 degrees of Aries. But now, in between that, we have two significant astrological transits that I want to highlight. One is on the 15th of March, which is dun, 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 Mercury retrograde Mercury retrograde begins. Now, many of you have probably heard of Mercury retrograde if you're tuning into this podcast, and we all know a lot of the themes that come with Mercury retrograde. And so Mercury is stationing, I cannot talk, I'm sorry. Mercury is stationing retrograde at 9 degrees of Aries. Again, that potent 9-10 degrees Aries mark. And this is really going to be calling us to reflect, to contemplate, and to really review a lot of the processes of our minds. Mercury retrograde always really calls us to slow down, to really contemplate what the heck is going on, where we want to go, where we've come from. And it can be a time where a lot of energies from the past really come up and are present for us. And so, yeah, that is one of those dates. And then the second one that I want to highlight is the spring equinox, which is at 0 degrees of Aries. And this is on the 20th of March. And the equinox is that balancing point. It is where there's equal light and dark, day and night during the day. And it also really represents a balancing of the masculine and feminine polarities within us. And it's just so crazy because since probably mid-February, I've noticed this theme of really, I'm being called to learn how to balance my masculine and feminine sides, especially because I've realized how out of balance they are. I've really been hyper dominant in my masculine side my whole life because it did not feel safe for my feminine side to be expressed. I have a lot of trauma surrounding the divine feminine essences within me. I was scolded for showing these feminine essences in any way when I was a teenager. Not allowed to wear makeup, made fun of by parents for wearing makeup, called a whore for, dressing girly and maybe dressing a little risque at 13, 14 years old, which is when you freaking do that stuff. I remember seeing girls in bralettes and underwear at Roller Palace in this roller rink I went to, and they were 12 years old. And I would be like, yo, I can't even wear a tank top and I get called a whore. What? But, working through these themes, especially all of those things that I just mentioned, it's helped me to see how out of balance as a collective society we are and how much we've normalized this imbalance, because it's very much normalized to call women sluts, whores, if they demonstrate too much risque feminine or they're too in their feminine. I feel like this could just be from my perspective, but I feel like it's very much normalized for women to completely hide that feminine essence. Kind of like what Billie Eilish does, how she wears really big clothes and wears like sweatpants and kind of like dude-ish clothes. That's exactly what I do as well in order to protect and preserve my feminine essences, because it hasn't felt safe for these essences to be expressed and to exist. And it's crazy because I've noticed in my body, because so your right side of your body is connected to your divine masculine polarity, and your left side of your body is connected to the feminine. And those also correspond to the hemispheres of the brain. So the right side of the body corresponds to the left hemisphere of the brain, which correlates to very masculine archetypes. It's the logic, reasoning, that like very logical side of our brain. And then the left side corresponds to the right brain, which is correlated to creativity, intuition, those more feminine archetypes. And so as I've been really noticing, like really realizing how out of balance I am and how much I've normalized that. Like I've just normalized doing more, like acting more in my masculine. And I've really created an identity around that, especially like what I wear, and just how I act, how I show up. It's very much more masculine. And my entire right side of my body has been manifesting wounds, ailments, discomfort, pain for the past couple years. And I've always known that it's like, oh, because like, I'm too in my masculine. Oh, I'm like, a little out of balance. But I haven't known how to balance them. Like I haven't known how to bring out this feminine essence within me, because it's been so locked away and it's been so layered with fear. I would rather wear like sweatpants and a t-shirt out to dinner because that's what's safe and comfortable for me, than to actually wear like real people clothes, as I call it, even just like jeans and a shirt, something that makes me look a little bit more feminine. And because I've so repressed this feminine, and because I haven't really understood how to awaken it, I've done a lot of contemplation on this and a lot of reflection, and I have really realized that it's because I'm very afraid to express that feminine. And that expression has equaled trauma, rejection, shame, embarrassment, a whole plethora of things. So that is one of the big themes that is present for me and is especially being highlighted by the equinox. And one more thing that I actually want to add about this like masculine feminine balance before I move on to the next one is these ailments in the right side of my body. It's literally like I've noticed that because I'm exerting so much masculine energy, I've always associated my left side with my more enable and more like disabled side, especially because I was in a motorcycle accident. I do actually have physical disabilities. They don't inhibit me as much as a disability typically does, especially because of the healing and the strengthening and everything that I've done with it, but it is still present. And so my left side, when I was in the hospital, I had severe infections, and I have skin grafts. I have skin grafts on my arms. The skin grafts on my right side, you literally barely even notice because the grafts took and healed very, very well. Don't mind the little kitty cuts. We was playing earlier. And then on my left side, these grafts did not take and all became very infected, had to be redone several times. And it's not like they look bad. It just, you can kind of tell the difference. Here, I'm going to put the mic down. You can tell the difference. And this left hand was actually completely like frozen like this, kind of like a claw. And I had to get surgeries. It's kind of hard to see, but putting the mic down again. Oh, sorry, I'm like all over the place. But yeah, I had to get surgeries to help like release some of the tension and the repression in this left side. So interesting, because when you look at the energy dynamics, it's like as above, so below, as within, so without. And so yeah, I've noticed, like upon looking back in all of that, my left side has just been the most disabled and the most unable to express. Like if I try to lift something with this hand, my wrist is so like fucked. it just falls. Like when I used to work at a middle school kitchen cafeteria, when I would have to take pizzas out of the oven, I literally had to hold just a pizza with two hands because my left hand was so unable of holding it itself. So especially these past few months, as I mentioned, I've noticed these ailments on my right side like really flaring up. Like the whole right side of my face will just get completely inflamed with nerve pain and heat and just like discomfort, or, you know, little cuts on my right side, not the left. And I've also noticed just how all of these, like, it's yeah, instead of tangenting, we'll just leave it at that. Like, I've just really noticed how whenever I get injuries or ailments or like chronic flare-ups, it's always in my right side, and the weakness is really, really centered in my left side. And then that all correlates with the expression of the divine masculine and feminine energies within me and without me. So this is going to be a big focus, and this balancing energy has really been one of those themes that's been coming into my peripheral these past couple months, especially in regards to a lot of the themes that these astrological transits are touching on, which, like I said, I'm going to go into in a moment. But to wrap up these significant astrological dates that are within the month of March, we have that solar eclipse at 9 degrees of Aries. So it's an Aries solar eclipse at 9 degrees on the 29th of March. And then on the 30th, we have Neptune entering Aries, the planet of Neptune. And we'll talk a lot about what this means and the significance of this transit being right at the very end of this very potent transformational month. So without further ado, now I'm going to talk a little bit more about these personal transits and how they are affecting me personally. So Venus retrograde at 10 degrees of Aries beginning on March 1st. So Venus retrograde is a time where we really reflect and review our relationships, our finances, how we interact with money, how we exchange it, and overall how we relate to things, how we relate to our finances, how we relate to the people in our lives, and what these relationships are reflecting about our energy within, you know, as above, so below, as within, so without. And the more I pay attention to astrology and like look at these themes, I just see how we do live in this mirror universe, that everything outside of you is literally just a reflection to help you restore balance and to help you to ease any tension or any wounds within you. That it's not there to trigger you to make you feel like shit. It's there to trigger you to help you to become aware of where you're giving your power away, where you're stifling yourself, etc., etc. And I have these little like pieces of paper that I just like scribbled notes on real quick. So I just want to look at it real quick. All right. So this 9 and 10 degrees of Aries point, I found is very significant for me because it's very close to my South Node and my Saturn, which are both in that sign of Aries. And I'm still a novice at this. I'm still learning how to like correlate the degrees with your chart, because I've always seen astrologers say, look where this degree falls in your chart and look at the planets that are around it, you know, that are, you know, relating to it. Or not relating to it, that are close to that degree, because that will reveal what themes are being highlighted by the transit. So my South Node in Aries is located at 7 degrees, and that's very close to this 9 and 10 degree mark. And I have really found that this has brought up a lot of like past life memories, and these past or parallel, whatever the heck you want to call it, but all these past life memories and these energies that I've been carrying with me from previous lives, because our South Node in astrology relates to the life we're sort of stepping away from. It relates to past life energies, past life karmas, and all in all, just the themes and archetypes that we're stepping away from in this life. You know, your past life happened back there, your present life's here. So you're like, you know, yeah, you get it. So this South Node at 7 degrees Aries, it has really been spotlighting a lot of past lives, like I said. And these past lives, I don't really like sit there and ask to be shown past lives and ask to like, have these things come to me. It'll more so be that these memories are just like triggered in the moment when a certain aspect of information triggers it. Like when I realized that my South Node was at the 7 degrees of Aries mark, and I've also really realized how the lesson that comes with this South Node for me is I'm moving away from these lifetimes of hyper independence where I was very, very independent, very like fiery, momentum, very Aries. And that energy is very familiar within me and is why my masculine and feminine archetypes are so out of balance, because I've been so in my masculine and in my like independence and protector and doing and create, like that very structured, strong masculine energy. I've been very in that energy in this lifetime, and I do really feel like it does stem from previous lifetimes where that energy was more necessary for me, depending on, the society or whatever. And so I'll talk about two past lives really quick. One of them came up for me years ago, or I think it was, 2 years ago, when I did a past life regression session. And in this past life, a lifetime came up for me where I was at one of the oracles at Delphi, however you say it. And I knew nothing about this. I had heard about like ancient Greece and how there were like the oracles and how they were very like philosophy and very wise and spiritual and blah blah blah. But I never like actually looked into the oracles of Delphi and like what that is, what it is, what it represents. I didn't really know what it was. But so I'm doing this past life regression and I'm shown this lifetime, and I just like inherently knew when I was seeing that lifetime that I was one of the oracles of Delphi during that time. And I could see like it was, oh, I'm getting chills saying it. It was one of the most vivid memories. Like that's how I knew it was a past life, because it was so felt. It felt like I was there living it, and it just felt so real. Like it felt like it happened in this life, even though I've never been to Greece and my skin is burned 3rd degree. Because in this lifetime, or in this memory, I was sitting on a rock by the water and it was extremely hot, and you could see like that kind of Greek, I don't want to say kind of like oceanside. Like I could tell it was like those cliffs where the oracles of Delphi met. And I was down by the water on a rock, and I could see like the water on my skin, and it wasn't burned skin. It was very tan, like Greek-ish skin, olive skin, and it had water on it, and it was glistening, and it was just so beautiful. And I saw me working with these other women in our like this connection of like sisterhood. But at the end of my life, I was very alone, and I was very afraid of that, because throughout this lifetime when I was an oracle, I was so devoted to my work and my spiritual growth. So I never entered into relationship. I never married. I never had kids. I never dated. I never like troubled myself, it felt like, with those earthly things. Like it felt like I was so committed to my purpose and I was so just devoted to my spiritual growth that I denied a lot of earthly pleasures and earthly things, like marriage, like having kids, having a family, having those things. And I got to the end of my life and I really realized that keeping that, it like wasn't worth it, essentially. And I almost like regretted it and wished that I met someone, because I was very alone at the end of my life. And it almost feels like this was like a very recent past life, because that energy, that like devotion to mission and purpose, and that like kind of rejecting earthly pleasures, that is such a real thing for me, especially when I tune back into my childhood and teen years. I just felt this like existential fear of like, oh my God, like I'm alone and I'm going to end up alone. And I didn't get it because I was young and I had all these friends and like I had family, but this energy within me was manifesting and was creating this like, like, oh, I don't want to party because like I need to like, preserve my health. And I'm not gonna like, really pursue a lot of these things because like my grades and like my development is like more important. And so, and even like, to this day, I see how, because I am in a relationship, I've been in one for 5 years, and there have come points in my time where I'm like, oh, like, is this relationship holding me back from my spiritual growth? Like, do I need to like be alone for a while so I can really get into my like spiritual and like focus on my mission and my purpose and my work? But I've really seen how like that's like not what I'm here to do in this life. My north node is in Libra and I am a Libra sun. And my Chiron is in Libra. So I have come here to heal my relationship with others and how I relate to others and how I relate to myself, with life, with my purpose, etc. And so this south node at 7 degrees of Aries really, really highlighted a lot of stuff. And real quick, I'll mention a second past life that came through for me. So this past life came up like right when I was tuning into reading about my south node in Aries. Like I was reading about these things and I realized how some of these themes are present for me, but also how they are coming up at this time. So this 9-10 degree mark of Aries, these transits are really activating my South Node in Aries and a lot of the past life energies that have been in my peripheral. So one thing that I've really noticed in my own life is that I do like kind of struggle with like psychedelics and overdoing it. So I've had a series of bad trips, not recently, like this is years ago, like 5-6 years ago, where I would trip and I would be so afraid of overdosing. And it was from things like mushrooms and things like DMT that like it's really not common to overdose, but I would do these things and I would have these panic attacks that would send me into a bad trip that I overdid it, like, and I'm going to die from these drugs. So a past life came up for me recently and like I saw the memories. I saw like Haight-Ashbury because I don't think I said that right, but it's that like street in San Francisco where like that hippie psychedelic cultural like acid trip movement happened back in the 60s and like 70s and stuff. But so I was living in San Francisco when I was very young. I was probably like younger than 20. And I was part of this whole like hippie movement and I was like doing acid and going to like the acid tests and like, all those shows and like the Grateful Dead vibes, like all that stuff was my life. And I saw that I took acid and I was at this, rave type thing, like a modern day rave, but like way back then. Like the acid test and the Grateful Dead, if you know what I'm talking about, it was like that kind of vibe. Just like a bunch of little teenagers all took acid. There's live music playing, like, psychedelic rock and lights and just like, that vibe. Modern day rave type shit. But so I was at one of those and I took acid and I don't know if it's like I took too much or if it was kind of like new in the acid creation. So it was just like, the chemical compound just did not interact well with my being, but I died and I overdosed from this trip. And this has led to fear of death from psychedelics in this life, possibly. But so like I said, the reason why I bring up these past lives is it's not something that I just like make up. Like I'm sitting there daydreaming like, oh, what's my past life? Maybe it was here. Maybe it was this. It's like, no, like I'm reading something and all of a sudden this download gets triggered and it's like I'm experiencing these moments of this past life that my soul is sharing with me in like real time. Not that like, my body like teleports to there. It's like in my mind's eye, I can see it, I can feel it. It's like I'm reliving that memory within. And, it's like if you think of a memory from when you were in like kindergarten right now, like do that. Like think about when you were in kindergarten, like put yourself there. That's kind of what it's like when these past life memories come up. So I can't control them. I don't fabricate them and they just kind of like come. And so I really believe that this specific theme is being highlighted because I have really abused a lot of psychedelic drugs, medicines, whatever you want to call it. I've abused psychedelics a little bit in the past. I've abused weed a little bit. I used it more as a crutch than as this sacred plant teacher that I wanted to commune with, and I was doing a lot of these things just like to get high and just kind of like following the crowd and not really realizing the potency and the like significance and like importance of these things, like the sacredness, not really respecting them. And I think that's what led to this death was like, I was just kind of in that like counterculture movement and I wasn't really seeing the spiritual significance of what I was doing. So before I could kind of harm myself more, my soul kind of like left the incarnation, and that's why I overdosed. And so I'm still integrating all of this and still like understanding it all, and it's like it's not like I'm never going to do psychedelics again, but it's just helped me to understand like why I had such a hard time with psychedelics during these trips in the past, because I never really understood, like everyone around me would be like chilling, oh my god, this is great, like I feel it in my heart, and I'm just like, I'm dying. Sorry if that was really loud, but yeah. So these past lives are really being highlighted as I am moving through this Venus retrograde and just a lot of these other energies this month. Because also, the other astrological transit that's being highlighted by this Aries 9 and 10 degree focus this month is my Saturn. The planet Saturn is at 3 degrees of Aries. And Saturn energies, I'm not an expert at any of this. This is all just like through study and note taking and kind of like puzzle pieces that I've put together myself. But my Saturn at 3 degrees of Aries, what's being really highlighted with this transit is healing what has already happened and basically healing what has come so that I can fully move into my destiny. Because this Saturn transit really, when I was really researching it myself and looking into it, the themes that are highlighted the most is problems in early childhood, issues with authority, and basically like family problems. And one thing that was really highlighted in this transit that resonated a lot for me is that home life is very important to me, but it's something I always feel the need to escape. And that is so, so real for me because home life is definitely the biggest challenge of my entire incarnation. My entire 28 years of life, I have suffered and struggled the most with home life, where I've lived, family, and just those home energies. And so I wrote down a little bit about this transit here. So the Saturn in Aries at 3 degrees really represents blockages in expressing my feelings and me being very rigid, logical, and emotionally unavailable. And it's interesting because I've heard that your romantic relationships, like who you're in a relationship with, and not even just your romantic relationships, but your relationships in general, they will mirror your relationship with yourself. So if you're attracting a lot of emotionally unavailable people, it's because you are unavailable to your own emotions and you have blockages expressing feelings. And now since Venus has gone retrograde on, I almost said April, on March 1st, since since Venus has gone retrograde on March 1st, I've really, really noticed how I do have blockages in expressing my feelings. And I am very rigid and very unavailable to my own emotions. If a dense or heavy emotion comes up, I just go and numb it with weed. And that's where I say, like, I've really been abusing this psychedelic plant because every time these emotions are trying to be expressed and integrated, I just shove them down and push them away and hide from them because I've been afraid of them and I haven't understood them. And a lot of that has been modeled throughout my life. And that's why I brought up like the family stuff, and that this really mirrors the emotional unavailability of my entire family, my whole life. That anytime I was like upset or like just felt these difficult emotions, my dad would take me to the store and buy me something, or my mom would like do something to like make it feel better, instead of actually holding space for me and asking like, well, why do you feel that way? Or instead of taking responsibility for how they have made me feel that way, instead they just would blame it on me or belittle me or try to numb that with some outside thing, with a toy, with food, with whatever. And so this dynamic, these themes are really being spotlighted through these 9 and 10 degrees of Aries transits this month, because my Saturn is so close to that degree. And so, yeah, this brings up a lot of problems with parents and those who gave me care during childhood, and just overall like difficulty with those emotional things. And these difficulties, it's not just like, I was abused and I was like treated like shit or whatever. It's more so that my needs were never fully met because of the emotional unavailability and the dissociation from real reality that my entire family has been steeped into. Both of my parents were partiers. They both were. I mean, I only saw my dad drink once in my whole life, but he used to be like a heavy drinker and partier. My mom was a drinker, still struggles with it. My mom was an addict. My dad, who knows what he did? I barely know, a lot about him and like his lifestyle and stuff, but I do know that they both coped with heavy emotions and with dissatisfaction and with like the dissonance that they felt through these external means, whether it was through my dad being a workaholic, or my dad drinking like 20 coffees a day, or my mom also drinking like 20 coffees a day and being a workaholic, but also being a drug addict, being a drama addict, like all these things, like all these ways in which it was always modeled around me that we must reach outside of ourselves to fill the void and to get away from whatever we're feeling inside, which creates a very disassociated state and a very hyper masculine, see how the themes are connecting, very hyper masculine themes, and it really isolates consciousness within the mind, which also causes us to really get into our masculine, because that masculine archetype is really about like the processes of the mind. It's like logic, reasoning, things that just make sense, just logic. And that feminine is very much like the sensations of the body. It's feeling, it's like humanness, creativity, sensation. Like feminine I always associate with the body, and then masculine I always associate with the mind. Yeah. But yeah, so this Saturn in Aries at 3 degrees transit, I'm gonna just like wrap it up real quick, but this like focus on my relationship with my parents and on reparenting myself and on my childhood trauma and like just the substance of it, like why it happened, like what it entails, that is like the main focus of me throughout this month of March. And it is like these themes, like I said, have been coming into my peripheral these past few months. So it's just like blowing my mind as I'm reading through all these things. It's like, oh my gosh, like since December, I've been focused on reparenting myself, because I had a lot of like come to Jesus, like revelatory moments where it like things just clicked. And I just really realized kind of like how I was shoveling shit against the tide and how I was just not helping myself because I was blaming myself. And I was like, why did I create this childhood drama? Like, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? And not to say that I've shifted the blame to others, but I've seen how like I was never really like parented in the way that I needed it in my developmental years. Because my childhood before age like 12 was very good, very like perfect almost in my eyes. I thrived. But then after age like 12, 13, that's when I started, suicidal ideations and like entered a deep, deep freaking depression. And it was because all family, all parental figures just like disappeared and were completely dissociated. And I was just like on my own, no idea how to meet my needs, no idea anything about my physical body. Like, bro, I just yesterday learned when your ovulation phase is within your period. Like, I never learned any of these things. No one ever taught me. Maybe they taught it in school, but it's so traumatizing to learn about these things in fucking school. So I did not absorb any of it if it was taught. But like, I was just like left in my room with just like no guidance, like no idea. Like, I had to teach myself how to do my own laundry, how to cook for myself, how to, like, everything was left up to me. And it's interesting because this is that like hyper independence energy that I'm moving away from. So my entire childhood was steeped in this hyper independence and this needing to do everything myself and being very determined to be independent and to do it myself. But it hurt me and it really traumatized me. And now this transition that I'm making, which, wow, this is another theme that I really want to like write down real quick so that I can remember. I'm transitioning out of childhood into adulthood. And I was talking to one of my friends about this yesterday. So another theme, being tied together. And this correlates to that South Node, North Node. I'm moving away from these Aries these Aries energies, and moving into these Libra energies, moving out of that hyper independence and that need to do it all myself, and very like ram, like go, 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 like Aries energy, which was my childhood and my formative years. And then now, because the past like 2 to 3 years, I've been in this very potent transformation, dark night of the soul period, where I've been facing all of these past energies and like facing them in the present and alchemizing them to act and move and live in a new way. And so, yeah, that past, that Aries energy, alchemizing that so that I may heal my relating with others, which is all Libra energies. All Libra energies. It's relationships. It's like speaking. It's your relationship with yourself, with pleasures, finer things in life, and very like Venus energies. And so, yeah, I very much see how these Saturn themes are helping me to make peace with the past and to understand the past most of all, and this karma that I was predisposed to when coming into this life, and why I created the situations that I did in my younger years, like why I needed to go through those to learn certain lessons to really step into my destiny and to step into adulthood and all of that. And yeah, so to wrap up the Saturn transit, my lesson at this time and throughout this life is to really more fully and deeply understand and value my true origins, which will lead to a better sense of security and greater self-acceptance, acceptance of my path, acceptance of who I am, my sensitivities. Because the reason why I was so steeped in this trauma is because I did not understand it. Like, I thought that I was just a victim. I just, through my child brain and like the dissociation of my family and just the state of consciousness of the area that I grew up in, North Shore of Massachusetts, close to Boston, I did not understand it. I did not know how to connect with myself, how to find myself, what I was interested in. And so, because I didn't understand anything and I did not value it, like the reason why I moved away from Massachusetts was because I did not value my origins. Bop-a-da-boopy, moved to Florida for a bit. Now we back. Since I moved back, I've been in, like I said, this dark night of the soul period, alchemizing these past energies. And the way I did that was through understanding. It was really through understanding and bringing value to what I experienced, not diminishing it, not shaming it, not trying to get away from it, just accepting it. Because that's how we heal, is through acceptance. You don't heal by cutting things off as mainstream medicine wants you to think. If you have cancer in your finger, if you cut off that finger, that cancer is going to grow in the next finger because there is an underlying energy that is not being accepted, that is wreaking havoc and is creating that cancer. You can't just run away from it. It's like if a bear is chasing you, eventually you have to turn and face that bear. So yeah, it's a crazy world. It's a crazy journey we be on, but we out here. And yeah, all in all, I feel like just these March transits, they're helping me to restore balance, helping me to like really reparent myself and thus become an adult, because I've been really stuck in a lot of my childhood energies and a lot of childhood, like childlike operating procedures, like not wanting to take responsibility, like, just really being a kid in many ways. But that's what I really needed, especially because I was so disconnected from my inner child and was so in that hyper masculine. It's all just like really been happening for a reason. And I'm just so grateful for that. I've just really been able to cultivate such gratitude for that, because working through these like intergenerational traumas, these pains and these traumas in my family lines and with my parents, it is not easy, especially when like you really realize kind of the truth. Not that like I was abused and like these people are so bad, but like, oh, like they just have no idea who they are, how to be human, or how to actually connect with another human. So a lot of mistakes were made and a lot of pain was just projected and just unconsciously placed upon others. And the more I can heal and take responsibility for this and to bring understanding to what happened to me, I know that I won't pass that on to my kids, and I won't continue to rehash these same themes and these same pains and patterns again and again. Putting the past in the past, moving on from that Aries energy. And it's like, it's crazy. Sometimes all you need is just a potent fucking dose of a certain energy to just like get all your ducks in a row. Because like I said, all these themes have been coming to me. And, another thing that I did want to talk about in this show, which I'll talk about briefly real quick, is this book right here, which is Awakening the Truth Frequency by Laura Eisenhower. Yes, she is President Dwight D. Eisenhower's great-granddaughter. I think it was great. There may be two greats there. Sorry if I got that wrong, but this book is amazing, and it came to me at exactly the right time. And it just, like, is providing so much insight and clarity to these themes. Like, just verifying that, oh yeah, like you're not supposed, like all these things that we've normalized are not normal and are not sustainable and are toxic for humanity. I won't go too into it because we're already almost at an hour for this episode, but we're flowing, we're rolling with it. But yeah, like I said, this book, it came to me and it has helped me to learn how to reparent myself and like what's really going on. And it's most of all helped me to heal my mother wound and learn how to mother myself and how to really connect with the light and these divine feminine archetypes and positive divine masculine archetypes within me, because I feel like Laura Eisenhower has such a potent divine feminine energy. Like, it really reminds me of Mary Magdalene and those very powerful sacred female frequencies. And just all in all, I have such gratitude for her and for her work, and just through sharing what she went through and her psychic attacks and like just so much more, it's helped me to understand what I've gone through. Because I feel like when we share our experiences and what we've learned about it, hence why I'm filming this podcast episode right now, it helps a lot, and it helps us to see what we haven't seen or what was too blocked by emotional turmoil or fear or whatever. And in learning to reparent myself and especially to heal my mother wounds, it has just profoundly brought me back into my power and brought me compassion and empathy for just like everyone. I'm no longer blaming and judging and cutting myself off from people to protect myself. I'm softening and I'm able to connect with people more. And it has really been through connecting with the truth, because the more I see the truth and I know the truth and I feel it within my body, the fear and the dissonance and the pain, it doesn't have power over me anymore, because I trust in my ability to make the right choices and to do the right thing. And yeah, like I said, this book is one of those things that I really did want to bring up in this episode. So We done did it. And so, yeah, one of the last astrological things that I want to, or second to last thing that I want to talk about are these eclipses. So, another interesting little thing that I figured out is that the total lunar eclipse on the 14th or 13th, 14th of March, it is happening at 23 degrees of Virgo. And my Mercury is at 22 degrees of Virgo. So that's like very, very close. And this eclipse is really activating my Mercury. And the themes that relate to this is that I've been really too focused on the details and really like afraid of stepping on the world stage and upholding my ideas and my beliefs publicly. And that is so real for me. And it's crazy because the phrase like too focused on details and like can't see the forest through the trees and being myopic, which is when you're too focused on the detail and not seeing the bigger picture. This theme has been present for me since last eclipse season. And I even write about it in my book, which if you didn't know, I'm writing a book right now. It's pretty cool. It'll be out soon, I hope. But so a lot of, like I've said, I've been very in my masculine, which is very much mental oriented. So and Mercury is related to the mind. And I see how at the level of mind, I have been really focused on the details, like really focused on the pain, really focused on what happened, and not zooming out to see the bigger picture that like, oh, maybe this is happening for a reason. Maybe these things had to happen in this way so I could learn certain lessons or so I could resolve certain past karmas, past life, present life, whatever. Too focused on the pain to really see the bigger picture. And so this eclipse is activating my Mercury because the degrees are very, very close, and it's helping me to like work through these fears once and for all, because I have been really focused on the details and I've needed to zoom out and see the bigger picture, especially in regards to my childhood trauma. And eclipses, a big theme of eclipse season is releasing. And like I said, like it's almost like the curtain closes, the rug gets ripped out from under you, and where we experience those tower moments and those like release moments. And I see how I have really needed to release my very myopic view and to really zoom out and see the bigger picture, because I do feel called to step onto the world stage and to speak and to uphold my ideas publicly. I've wanted to do a podcast since 2019. I've wanted to be on YouTube since fifth grade. I've wanted to write books since I was like 8 years old. All these things that I'm doing now require me to uphold my views, my beliefs, and my perspectives on the world stage. And I've been very much afraid of that because of my childhood trauma, because of my interactions with my parents and with people. And just all in all, I've been in hiding mode. And I've been too focused on those details instead of zooming out to like, help ease me out of hiding. Because yeah, I've been hiding for my purpose because I've been a bit afraid of it and a bit afraid of stepping into these roles that I'm being called to step into. And so I'm really, really being called to develop concentration and retention of the knowledge I attain, which that really spoke to me because so many times I'll learn these things and they'll really click for me, but I have trouble digesting them and really like retaining that knowledge because I've been so distracted and so like, focused over here, instead of like really concentrating on what matters and on anything. I've been very, very scattered, and that's something that I do really want to work through. And so, yeah, all in all, I am very good at paying attention to the details, but it really would help me to zoom out and see the bigger picture, especially with this theme like being so present in my life since like September, October of 2024. So this is really, really potent for me at this time. And yeah, all in all, I know I'm going to make it through this period, because it's not like, once I get to the end of March, it's going to be like, oh, back to normal. I can really feel that all these transits, the retrogrades and the eclipses and the planets shifting signs and equinox, like it's all bringing a culmination and bringing understanding to, like I said, all these themes that have been present in my life for a couple of years, but primarily for the past couple months. And now, because I've really gone over all of these and I don't want to, yeah, we're good. So now I really want to talk about how, like, what I am using to support this process that I am moving through right now. What practices and what support am I utilizing to do this inner work and to make these transformations that I'm making? So, like I said, this book, for one, found me at exactly the right time. I'm already like halfway through with it, which is huge for me because usually it takes me a long time to get through books, and I'll usually just read through the beginning and then I just put it down and I never finish it. But this one, I've already gotten halfway through and I've only had it for about a week now. And it's just clarifying, resonating, and just helping so much with a lot of these themes. Like the way Laura speaks and delivers she speaks a lot from experience and it's all embodied. Like some of the stuff she says is very galactic and very, very like high energy, high level, like, yeah, galactic stuff. But so much of it is like really embodied. And she takes from a lot of other people who talk about these things too, which helps to not just see her perspective, but to see what other people say about our current society, how we treat each other, like what's going on, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, highly recommend it. Awakening the Truth Frequency by Laura Eisenhower. But another thing that is going to be assisting me through this period, which is another reason why I wanted to hop on and talk about all these things, because it was like I stepped back this morning and I realized, holy shit, this is all like connected. I read into all the astrology on the 1st. I think it was on the 1st. Let me see real quick. Yeah, on the 1st, when Venus shifted into retrograde, when I saw Lily Ashwell's Instagram post about the astrology of March. And I wrote this long, long note in my phone about it because it just resonated so much and it felt like so many dots were connecting. And then I received an invitation to join the Conscious Business Accelerator 2.0, which is a free beta program that's hosted by Victor Odo and Aaron Doty, the YouTubers. And I've done this Conscious Business Accelerator before about 2 years ago, and it changed my life. It helped me to start my brand Ancient Esoterica, build my website, and to really step back into my purpose because I really fell off of it, and a lot of things just like I felt like a failure for a while. Going through these dark night of the soul energies and all of that, which I would say I've definitely been in this dark night of the soul for like 3 years now, about. And starting in like March of 2022. Or yeah, we'll say March. We'll go with that. I was going to say May, but I guess March. And yeah, so when I did this Conscious Business Accelerator before, it literally changed my life to have the accountability and the support and the daily Zoom calls and the activities and just what to focus on. It just was truly an experience of receiving the right information at the right time to level me up. And now it just so happens that I am participating in the Conscious Business Accelerator 2.0 starting on March 10th. And this is, I'm pretty sure it's like a 3-week program, and there's daily Zoom calls that really, it's a conscious business accelerator. So those who have a conscious business or are doing purposeful work, it really helps to accelerate that and up level that. And I can feel that, I started my podcast again last week with no intention, like no insight as to this transformation I'm moving through and what I'm being called into. It was just like, okay, it's time to bring the podcast back. Let's do it. And then I started really thinking about my book and how I want to publish it and how I want to go about promoting it. And just all these business themes have just been coming into my peripheral. At the same time, all these healing themes have also been coming in. So when I got the invitation to join that Conscious Business Accelerator, it was like, oh my gosh, like this is it. Like this is it. This is going to create such a container for me to blast off and for me to do the work I need to level up. Because these programs, because there's another one that I'm actually doing as well at the same time, which is like, it's crazy. I'll get into that next. But these programs just create the container, and yeah, they just create the container for us to level up. So they can create these areas of focus and provide the right information at the right time to really, really help us to level up our lives in, whatever areas we're trying to level it up. And so I just see that there is no coincidence that I'm working through all these themes, which have been blocks to my purpose, blocks to my financial abundance, blocks to living my life work and stepping onto the world stage and living authentically. All these blocks are coming in, and all the information that I need to focus on, or I don't want to say I need, that would really benefit me to focus on as I'm clearing out these blocks, like bringing in new things. It's just, I feel it, Mr. Krabs. Because yeah, the second program that I joined doing, which I didn't realize they overlap at the same time until yesterday. So I'm definitely going to be very busy as I move through this transformational portal. So the second program that I'm doing is Dare to Prosper with Jolie Dawn. She's on Instagram. I've been following her for a while, but I was invited into this this challenge by Mia Magic, who is on YouTube, Instagram. Definitely look her up. She's amazing. But yeah, Mia Magic sent me an email to her newsletter talking about this program and how every day for, I think, 10 days, roughly 10 days, we will do group Zoom calls, meditations and activations, tuning into the energy of prosperity and abundance. Which, if you know me, you know that like abundance and money and finances and prosperity has been like the challenge of my life. Like I feel like it has been the demon that has been ruining my life for forever, because I have struggled with it so much. And the reason why I've struggled with it so much really has to do with a lot of these blocks that are coming up. I never learned how to save. I didn't have my first savings account until last year, ever, and at 27 years old. I never knew how to like budget. I just like, oh, I got money. Oh, I got to go spend it right away, because half the time I didn't even have lunch money. So like when I would actually get money, it was like, oh my God, like, oh, didn't know what to do, frantic. So this Dare to Prosper challenge has a series of speakers who are going to be, upholding their prosperity frequency, talking about their life. And I really see how whenever I enter into any of these containers, whenever I actually like am present with it and I'm like in the container, having these other people speak, whether it's Mia Magic, she's going to be speaking one day, or Deborah Silverman, she's also going to be speaking. And, Jolie Dawn, obviously it's her program. She's going to be guiding us through these activations and stuff. But when you have someone who's like a couple steps ahead of you, whose frequency you can attune to, it helps you to, one, feel that it's possible for you, and two, to feel those frequencies in your body and to start to embody them. Because if you're attuning to that person, you're balancing, you're resonating with them. So you're sort of like taking on their energy, and they're empowering you with their wisdom. So I really see that a mixture of this Conscious Business Accelerator and this Dare to Prosper challenge, they are, oh, I'm getting chills as I'm saying this. They are going to kind of provide these frequencies for me to attune to, and provide these containers for me to really level up my life and do the work in a safe and guided way. Because it's not like these people are going to be walking me through my individual trauma, but again, they share a lot about what they've gone through and what they've learned. And there's a lot of live coaching that happens within the Conscious Business Accelerator program. So yeah, so those two programs are going to be accompanying me on my journey. And the very, very last thing, save the best for last, which also I realized now, before we go into that, I do want to very briefly talk about that Neptune transit. So on March 30th, Neptune moves into Aries. And Neptune is very much the planet of healing and spirituality and empathy. And moving into Aries, Aries is very much the energy of like new beginnings and action. This really represents stepping into a new life, and really like doing the healing, connecting with the spirit within, and being able to take action on this new beginning. And it's no coincidence that that is the very last transit that's highlighted throughout this month. That, like, beginning on March 1st with the Venus retrograde, where, all those lessons about relating and finances and all of that coming into our peripheral. Mercury goes retrograde halfway through the month. All of those lessons about, communication and our mental processes and our past and whatever, all of that's being brought into our peripheral. Then you've got the eclipses, all of like, these themes and like past energies and like all of that is being highlighted. Because also, I will say the nodes really do touch on like our destiny points, and they touch on these eclipses, because these eclipses, I do say, are like it's like a portal of our destiny. Like I said, act comes down, act comes up, you move through this portal of transformation. But the eclipses are connected to the nodes, because an eclipse is when the north node and the south node, they do their like eclipsey thing. I don't know too much about it. I don't want to tangent, and I don't want to talk too long, but yeah, the eclipses are connected to the nodes and are connected to like our past life healing and our future like destiny, what we're stepping into. So we move through all this transformation, and then we get to the very end of the month, and Neptune moves into Aries the day after the solar eclipse too, which solar eclipses do represent new beginnings as well. So like we are on the cusp of a potent new beginning, a spiritual rebirth, you could say. That's it. Like this Neptune and Aries transit, it represents a spiritual rebirth. And if we're willing to really be uncomfortable and really like do the work for these couple of weeks, we will be fucking reborn with this at the end. So, wow, I love that. I'm feeling it. Ooh. And now, last but very not least, I want to talk about another practice that is going to be assisting me through this transformational portal of the month of March 2025. And that is, I am doing a Parasite cleanse. Now, if you haven't heard from them, the brand that I got this cleanse from is Food Over Drugs. Check out their website, check out their Instagram. I've done this cleanse before. I did it last October, so October of 2 Octobers ago, October of 2023. And I did it while I was working at the school cafeteria, so I did this cleanse while eating school food. And I learned so many freaking lessons during this first cleanse in 2023 about my mind-body disconnection, because I knew that I needed to do this. I could feel the parasitic energies within me, like my food cravings, my gut health. It was all just really icky, yucky. And I knew that I had to assist this cleanse by eating a good diet. But I will never forget, like, day 2 of the cleanse, I sat down and my boyfriend's mom, because we live with my boyfriend's family, she made burgers for dinner. And I like spiraled into a panic attack because I was so afraid to individuate. Like, I had food that I could eat that was good for me, but I was so afraid like not to eat that burger. Like it was insane, the agitation, the fear, the pressure, like just the panic attack that I had when I was deciding to do what was right for me, not what everybody else was doing. And what did I do? I went and I ate a burger. And I felt like shit about myself, because like the number one thing they say not to eat during a parasite cleanse is like red meat, greasy food, tater tot burgers. Like that's like number one, just don't eat a fucking burger for 10 days. And I couldn't. And it wasn't because I wanted it. It was because everyone around me was eating it. Like that's pretty crazy, dude. And now I'm entering into this cleanse again. And I feel like this is going to be a test to my a test to my independence, which is like one of the themes that I'm moving away from, because I have been so independent and so needing to do it all myself. But at the same time, for this cleanse, like I do need to stay away from the burgers. Like I do need to not eat whatever they cook, because whatever they cook does not support the cleanse. And this, it's like so funny. Like I just have to laugh at myself, because like, oh, little human things, like this is what bothers me, really. Like really, like not eating what everybody else is eating, but it's true. And I know, like, especially after reading the background information for this cleanse and, common symptoms for, like parasite overgrowths. Here, I'll actually read them real quick. The common symptoms are teeth grinding, anal itching, seasonal allergies, anxiety, intense sugar cravings in the evenings. Fucking me, like possessed by sugar cravings. Cravings of alcohol, not so much me. Excessive hunger, me. Nutrient deficiencies, anemia, fatigue, unclear thinking, all of that. Like every single one of those, even the fucking anal itching, like I struggle with. And so I know that doing this is going to be so good for me, especially because food cravings and digestive discomfort has been like the bane of my existence and my own personal hell forever, especially the past 2 years since I've been living here. So, and it's no coincidence that I start this cleanse on March 9th. So throughout this whole transformational window, I'm going to be doing a cleanse. And it's just so crazy how this all aligned, because I bought the cleanse about 2 weeks ago, probably like right when I got my tax return. I bought it because it's like $100, so it's a little bit of an investment, but I bought it right away, and I knew I would just save it for whenever the next cleanse window is, which she has all these windows right here, and pretty much you cleanse during the full moon, because parasite eggs hatch and are most active during the full moon. So when I looked and I saw that it was like March 9th to the 18th, I was like, oh, perfect. Wrote it on the calendar. That was the first introduction to this transformational portal that I was going to be going through. And then Lily Ashwell's information came to me about the astrology, and I was like, holy shit, like I'm doing this cleanse during eclipse season. I didn't even realize it. Like that's so crazy and so cool, because yeah, when I did this cleanse before, even eating all the shitty food, even eating school food, burgers, whatever, it still worked. It still worked, and it really, really helped me. So I know for certain that I am going to be I'm going to be giving myself a new lease on life at the end of this cleanse and at the end of this month. But yeah, so then I learned about all of the astrology and the eclipses. And then I learned about, and then I got this book and started, doing that work and leveling up. And then the Conscious Business Accelerator came into my frame, and I was like, oh my gosh, having that to focus on while I'm doing the cleanse, I could not ask for anything better, because I know that having something to focus on will really help me to counteract a lot of those intrusive thoughts and the parts within me that want to just stay comfortable and want to just binge out on sugar and meats and whatever. Like it'll really help me to concentrate, which is another one of those themes that's being highlighted through my Mercury retrograde and that activation of my Mercury on the lunar eclipse. Like, bro, you can't make this shit up. It's all connected. And then, the Dare to Prosper challenge with Jolie Dawn, which that is one of the main things that I really do want to get to the bottom of through this transformational gateway that I'm moving through, is my abundance blocks and why I have felt cursed in regards to money. Because it really has been money and scarcity and being broke that has led me to my worst suicidal ideations. And it is really what triggers those. Like what makes me want to take myself off this earth is money. Every time. Every time. So I can really see that there is very potent transformation ahead for me. And I know it is not going to be easy, but it is going to be worth it. And if I can really double down on concentration and focus, I got this. You know, the Parasite cleanse is from the 9th to the 18th. Eclipse season is from the 13th to the 29th. So I feel like starting, this weekend, things are going to get a little challenging for me. But I do have faith that I have what it takes to get through. And I find that because I am a very mentally oriented person, that by walking myself through these things, like, okay, like the peak intensity is going to be that 9th to the 18th when I'm doing that cleanse. And after that, I'll probably experience a little bit of relief. And then that solar eclipse may stir up a little bit more as everything culminates. But like, kind of having a foresight of what's to come really, really helps me, so I don't feel like everything's getting sprung upon me. And that's why I feel like all this information and all this guidance came into my peripheral when it did. And why it all started coming to me these past couple months and even past couple years, because now is the time. And like, I keep getting chills and just like, ooh, crazy. So yeah. Thank you for listening and for going on this journey with me for this episode of the podcast. And if you want any more information about everything that I've mentioned, the Conscious Business Accelerator, the Jolie Dawn's program, Laura Eisenhower's book, The Parasite Cleanse, I'm going to link all of this stuff in my description. So you can access those resources if you would like, if you want to do a cleanse yourself. I definitely recommend it, especially when you learn, like what parasites, how they influence us, like those symptoms. A lot of us have those symptoms. And yeah, you know what? I'm going to read just like a little bit more background information just to close this off in case you're interested in this parasite cleanse. So, parasites live amongst almost all animals on Earth. They play a crucial role in consuming or cleaning up what no longer lives so that new life has room to grow. Bro, that is like the theme that I'm moving through for the month of March. Cleaning up the past, cleaning up what is no longer living in the present so that new life has new room to grow. Like, you can't make that shit up. Earthworms are known for eating dead plant material, and parasitic worms such as pinworms, whipworm, hookworms, flukes, and ringworms consume flesh and fecal matter. Parasites have a tendency to pass through the colon walls of a healthy animal to search for additional food or spaces to lay their eggs. The parasites in nature will find organs or other areas in the body that are either weakened or contain a toxic buildup of waste to nest or feed. There, they will begin to consume the tissue of an already compromised organ, causing further damage to the body. And yeah, like parasitic energies, they consume what is already compromised. So the reason why this can be so healing, especially because you have to eat an elimination diet, which cuts out, sugars, starches, meats, all of those things. Yeah, I just want to see if it says. Oh yeah. So yeah, you pretty much eat raw fruit, raw veggies, raw nuts and seeds, and cooked foods. You just avoid like the sugars, the meats, the starches, and all of that. But yeah, all of this, like the diet mixed with the supplements and everything else, I feel like it will really help me to clear out and to heal that which has been like rotted within me, which is housing all of this trauma and these outdated programs relating to that Aries South Node, past hyper independence, hyper masculine, yada, yada, yada. And so to really support me, in addition to the cleanses, in addition to the programs, I'm really going to try to focus on that balance and on recognizing where I stifle my divine feminine and where I overcompensate in my divine masculine, and how I can really like bring both into my human experience. Because yeah, and while doing these things, it's not like I'm doing this and I'm expecting that this is going to make me better. This is just creating the container to empower me to make choices that will further empower myself and will help me to get better. So, yeah, I think I've delivered a lot of information there, and one of my housemates comes home for lunch in a few minutes. So I think I'm going to wrap this up here before we get interrupted. I am sending you all so much love. Thank you for tuning into this with me. Like I said, I'm going to link all of this stuff below. And yeah, here we go. Supporting myself on a life-changing, transformational journey. And no promises, but I'm really hoping to document at least a little bit of this journey because, yeah, it just feels very divinely guided and feels like something that's worth documenting. So, again, thank you for listening. If you would like to connect with me further, check out my Instagram, Ancient Esoterica, and my YouTube. You're on my YouTube. And my website, ancientesoterica.com, where I have all of my offerings listed, my soul readings, psychic readings, Akashic stuff, all of that. And I have a kick-ass knowledge base on my website too, if you are interested in learning about a variety of esoteric topics. Yeah. I hope this information supports you as you move through the month of March and beyond. And sending you so much love. Peace out and namaste.